So starting with a clean slate, a brand new Flash file, what I am going to do is save this first and foremost, just so it's done. And I will be putting the saved files that I've worked on today up on D2L so that if you want to download them and compare them to the video tutorials using the link that's posted on D2L to go find them on YouTube, then you can follow along that way as well. So if you want to put them in your personal archive, have at it. Now, I have my basic stage. If I want to change my stage background color just because I don't like white when I'm working, I can just, under Properties, go to Stage, and I can choose a new color. So I like to work on the dark gray just because I find it's just a nicer surface and it doesn't burn out my eyes while I'm staring at the screen working, so it's just a little more comfortable. You can choose whatever color you want. Typically in a larger animated project, you are going to cover the whole stage with artwork. You're not going to rely on the stage color as the color of your project, but I like to at least have a color so I have something other than white so I can see what I'm doing. Now I am going to just make a basic shape, something that I can work with and convert it to a symbol and then animate it. So I've chosen the paintbrush tool, and now I am going to draw a blobby kind of shape. I can even put some eyes in it. Now when I'm working with the paintbrush tool, we can see that it responds to my motion. It tries to smooth out the lines, and then I can just grab my paint bucket tool, choose new colors, and fill it. So I can fill this with whatever colors I find to be desirable for my given project. So I've now filled this in, and I think I just need some hair on this because it's just not looking right without some hair. So I really don't know what this is, except that it's kind of a face sort of thing of some weird clown-like creature. Now, if I want to animate this, I don't want to have to redraw this each and every frame of my project. What I would prefer to do is to convert it to a symbol, so then I can just move that symbol around. So making something a symbol is kind of like turning it into a group. If you've worked in programs like Illustrator or InDesign, you take a number of objects, you convert them to a group, so you just grab one part of it and it moves all the parts. Because otherwise, if I grab the hair, oh wait, no, that's moving part of the hair. If I grab that part, so I really don't, though that did cut it out kind of nicely, but it's not what I'm after here. So what I want to do is turn this into a symbol. So to do that, using the marquee tool, or the selection tool, I drag and select the whole thing, so it's all now highlighted here. So the whole thing is highlighted. And then I go under Modify and choose Convert to Symbol. I can also right-click, and I can also do, as we see here, it says F8. 3 ways, same result. And that will then pull up this dialog where I can name my symbol. So I'm going to name my symbol Clown. And there are 3 types of symbols that are supported in Flash. There's the movie clip, there's the button, and there's the graphic. We're not going to work on the button right now. A graphic symbol is a little more limited in the things it can do. You don't have as many properties that you can alter with it, but there are certain types of animations that we will work on where a graphic symbol will be the preferred symbol. But generally, especially when you're working towards making an interactive project, which is ultimately our end goal for the semester, is when in doubt, make it a movie clip. So if you don't have a compelling reason to do otherwise, make it a movie clip. That will serve you best, so that when you start trying to make it interactive and you're like, oh, why is this not working? Oh, I forgot to make it a movie clip. I made it the wrong kind of symbol. So when in doubt, go with movie clip. And then I can click on OK. And now we can see that it is now a movie clip. Now if I want to animate this object on screen, what I can do is I can right-click in the timeline or even right-click on the object, and I can see the first option that comes up is Create Motion Tween. And I select that, and now you will see that in the timeline it extended it out for 24 frames. It always defaults when it creates a starting motion tween to make it 1 second long. My frames per second is 24, therefore it made it 24 frames long. And it turned it blue, not the gray that we've seen previously. It made it blue. That signifies this is a motion tween. And now, if I want this to animate, if you remember previously we had to insert a keyframe, move the object, insert a keyframe, move the object, insert a keyframe, move the object. Here, I can now just move this. You can see it inserted a keyframe, and oh wait, it moves. Now, if I want to adjust it at the beginning here, or I mean at the middle, I can do that. Now it moves. And we can also see that it's following this path, and each dot you see on this path represents a frame. So we can see if I'm at this dot right there, it inserts that into it. Now, what's really fun about this that they introduced in these newer versions of Flash, this line that it's following, this path, can be adjusted. So I can now adjust the shape of that path, and now my object follows that versus the straight line. So it's a very flexible, fluid type of arrangement as part of it. But I'm going to undo a little bit of that. There. So right now I just have it moving in this straight line here. Or two straight lines. It goes up, comes down. Basic tween. If I want this to be longer, if I put my cursor at the end, drag it out to 60, so now it's taking a longer portion, about 2.5 seconds worth of animation. We can see that midpoint moved as well. So that midpoint, which previously was at about 12, is now at 29, so it's about at the middle of my animation. So it adjusted that keyframe. It tried to keep it proportionally spaced when I lengthened it. If you've worked in old versions of Flash, to adjust the length of it, I would have to insert a new keyframe further out, delete a previous one, and then I would have to get rid of that one in the middle, go back to the adjustment, insert a new keyframe. It was this huge, colossal pain to do any tweaks or adjustments here. I want it longer or shorter. Okay, that's easy. Done. So it's a much more fluid way of working that I would argue is far superior. Now this midpoint, this keyframe here, if I want to move that or adjust it so it's not in the middle, if I wanted it to be, say, at the first quarter of this, you'll see I can move the whole group of frames, but I can't get that frame. So a common thing that you will ask about is, how do I select that one frame? And you select that frame by holding down the Command key, Control if you're in Windows, and then clicking on the keyframe you wish to select. And now that highlights just that frame. So Command or Control, click on that keyframe, and then you can now move that frame to where you want it to be. Now, if we look at this and study what's going on, the dots along the animation path are showing me that how many frames are occurring to get to that new position. So it shows me it takes about 15 frames to get to that position, and then it takes 45 frames to get through the rest of it. And we can see that by the concentration of dots. And if I play my animation, you can see it also changes the speed. Amount of change over time. Frames represent time. The amount of movement represents that change. So now I've used the symbol and animated it using a motion tween. Now, one restriction on this is the motion tween now is affecting that object on that layer. If I want to animate a second object, it needs to be on its own layers. So some people get driven batty working in Flash, realizing you have to put all of your objects that you want to animate independently all on their own layers. And you realize you end up with 100 layers when it's all said and done. That's just part of the game. Because if you think about it logistically, what's going on, how could I have multiple objects on the same layer at the same place in the timeline and then have my keyframes represent them independently? I need two sets of keyframes. Each object gets its own set of keyframes. So it only logically follows that those objects should be on their own layers. So if I want to animate something else, I can go to this layer. Now we're going to look at another really cool feature of symbols. If I go to my library, I will see here's my clown sitting in my library. I can take that clown, I can put a copy of that clown on the stage. I can use the free transform tool. It's 3 tools down on my tool palette. And I can now take this clown and I can shrink him down. So this is a small clown. That's his, small brother right here. But he's also not out in the sun very much, so he's a little bit paler. So I went in my library and I dragged to a new layer a copy of this artwork, and I'm going to he gets 2 little brothers here. So I'm going to drag out another one on this new layer. Free transform tool, shrink it down, and this is his little brother right there. So now I drew the clown once, I'm using it 3 times. Now I can take each one of those and I can right click on it and say create motion tween. Go to my select tool, not my transform tool, and I will move that one down. Oh. So we can see now he's moving. And the littlest brother still needs to do something, so I'll have to turn his tween on. Create motion tween. And move it over to here. So he goes in that direction. And now that we have that running, I can just run my movie and we can watch it.